Well, hello there, and welcome to another installment of Chuck's Captivating Chat. Sorry to be a couple of minutes late there. I was wrapping up some of my work and I lost track of time. And any of you who have ever done these live streams knows that when you go onto YouTube, you then have to type in your title and your date and set it up and get it going. And I'm like, hurry! Trying to get it done and get on the air at 5 o'clock, my promised time. And I think it's what, 5:02 now. But anyway, here I am. And let's see who joins me. I usually have my loyal friends come aboard every week, and it's just wonderful. We've gotten off to some very good discussions. So much so that the unofficial format of the show has been almost like just a live talk, people bringing up questions and topics, and I just follow through on that. It's a lot of fun. And I've found my shows have gone a lot longer. When I first, hey, Kathy, thank you for joining me. And yes, Sasha sends her love to you. She's in the kitchen somewhere. She may come out and make an appearance. Oh, Kathy, by the way, I started work on your art piece for you. I've just been doing some sketching on it, but I've started. Just thought I'd tell you there. My life stays pretty busy. It's one of the reasons that I've curtailed a lot of my participation on my channel, Chuck's Captivating Chronicles. But Wendy, thank you for joining. Oh, I like all the emojis there. Ooh, peace symbols and hearts and butterflies and rainbows and sunshines and what am I thinking? Lucky Charms, pink hearts, green clover. Oh, it's really nice to have you here. Thank you for your loyalty. But yeah, I've been staying busy, so I've had to drastically curtail work on my YouTube channel. I always say it's temporary. I'll get back to it, but I do make a point of doing this live stream every Monday. It's almost like a place mark. It's a marker to hold my spot and to let people know, yes, the channel is still alive and active, and I'll be back. Oh, Ward, that's okay. I don't need emojis from you. Your presence is more than enough. You are more than enough of emoji all to yourself. So thank you for being here. I love how people know each other and say hello. Ward, any luck presenting VP Harris or portrait? No, none. I'm going to actually talk about that today on the show. I have written so many emails and made phone calls, and I've been advised to send even more. Even more. I was glancing at the comments there. Because these people clearly, this time, 30 days before the election, it's 29 now, they're being deluged with emails and messages. So I've just got to send. I'm going to hope someone's going to notice. But I'm going to talk about something else I'm doing with it. And Wendy, I love the hat that you made for Whimsy. And I can tell you, Whimsy adores it. We do a pre-show before, I do Taco Tuesdays, of course, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, every Tuesday, Oracle of Whimsy channel. And we do a pre-show beforehand where we discuss what we're going to talk about and go over our schedule and stuff and set up our lights and check our sound and everything. And Whimsy put the hat on. She was just glowing. Oh, she told me how much she loves the hat you made for her, Wendy. You did good. Yes, the black one. Well, initially she put it on backwards with the feather sticking out, and I kind of even liked it that way. And then she turned it around, and I saw the little things on there that are symbolic of who she is. And believe me, she really really appreciated that. So it was very kind. You gave it to the perfect person, your perfect hat. But yeah, no, I'm oddly enough, because I tend to work right up until before I do the show, because in my real life I have my hands in different jobs to make my living. And one of those is being Dr. Whimsy Anderson's personal assistant. And I make phone calls to people, just to, courtesy calls, hi, this is just a courtesy call on behalf of Dr. Whimsy Anderson. Say hello and thank you. See if you have any questions, concerns, that type of thing. But it's good because she loves to keep that personal touch going with everyone. And it does bring appointments to her. It just gently reminds you that we're here for you. And I always say, if I can be of assistance, I want to be here too. And you know what? I love people. I know it sounds like such a corny thing to say, but I found that I just love getting on the phone and chatting with the people that you know watch the shows and getting to know you, and you feel like such a presence. Let's see, I've got to keep looking at comments here. Uh, oh yes, you're right. Like when Scarlett O'Hara put the hat on backwards in Paris, that beautiful green hat. Oh my God, the costumes in that movie were just superlative. But I know what you mean. I think she was being coquettish and flirtful with Rhett Butler, and she purposely put it on backwards so he could correct her and turn it around. And I still remember how she tied that bow with the satin and all that. I would love to see an exhibit. I know some of the costumes don't exist anymore. I've read that some of the Scarlett's dresses, the fabrics were so delicate, they just have not survived the passage of time. That movie was made can you believe it, 85 years ago. So some of the clothes have just deteriorated, but some things still exist. And I'd love to see an exhibit of those. I've gone to, here in Los Angeles, like at the Motion Picture Academy Museum. It's so exciting to see original costumes and to see the exquisite craftsmanship that went into those outfits, for want of a better way. I'm saying an outfits, that seems like a demeaning word because they're just, couture, they're art. When I was in art school at Virginia Commonwealth University, we had everything. We had commercial art, where I was in, illustration, painting, printmaking, sculpture, but we also had a wonderful fashion design department. And sometimes it was all in this one big building. And sometimes I'd go up to the fourth floor where the fashion department was and just peek in the classrooms and things. And I talked to fashion students who told me they considered what they were doing sculpture. And as I've watched the process, I see, like when you've got the gown on the dress form, or if you're doing an actual fitting on the person, you're building it like a piece of sculpture. You're adding, taking away delicate little stitches. And some of these things, like, example comes to mind. We all saw Celine Dion's sublime performance at the Olympics. Oh my God, that was beautiful when she sang at the base of the Eiffel Tower. And she was wearing a Christian Dior original gown made just for her, true couture, where you're making the perfect dress for the perfect person. Someone said it should be something so unique and individual that only that person can wear that dress. That's been said about Marilyn Monroe's famous happy birthday dress, when she sang to John Kennedy, the very sheer flesh-colored chiffon dress with something like 6,000 individual crystals hand sewn onto it. It was just said nobody could have worn that dress but Marilyn Monroe, until of course Kim Kardashian came around and, I don't know, I can't say this for fact, but apparently she bribed some people or something. The dress is now owned by Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum in Hollywood, where they have it on display. And apparently, I don't know what the circumstances are, but they let her have the dress for one night to wear to the Met Gala in New York last year. And of course, you probably saw the controversy about it. And the dress has been photographed since she wore it. And yes, there are little tears and rips, and crystal beads have fallen off since she had it. It did do damage to that dress, but that's another story and that's another topic. I'd say I should look at my comments here. I meant to ask you if you got the rest of my story. Dolly Parton bringing television to our whole family, and it caused mass addiction. I'm trying to remember, Ward. I'll have to look back and see. I know we were talking about that. I remember we were talking about the greased pole and how it was a contest and she climbed up that pole so she could get I think it was $200, so she could buy her family a television set so they could see her on TV. She was just starting out in her career. But I'm not surprised it caused mass addiction, as that's the effect of television. When I was in college, I was a fresh off the turnip truck, 18-year-old freshman, 2 months out of high school, and there I wasn't suddenly thrust into college. One of our art teachers asked, "Have any of you ever been hypnotized?" And as I recall in the class, nobody raised their hand. And he said, "What are you talking about? Every single one of you has been hypnotized. How many people here have watched television?" And he proceeded to say, television is literally hypnotic. Think about it. It hypnotizes you. Television it's an energy suck. It can actually be quite parasitic. I'm reminded of a time I had a psychic friend tell me to do a parasite cleanse. Every human being has parasites. And she said this, not only would it benefit me physically, my digestion, but she said, don't be surprised if parasitic energy starts leaving you. And I started doing the cleanse, and I don't know why. For some reason, because I did this for like 5 weeks. During those 5 weeks, I had no desire to watch television. Just no desire. And it suddenly hit me halfway through the cleanse. Wait a minute. That's probably the biggest parasite in my whole life. Television. Big 65-inch screen television. Sit it, get sucked into the TV and not be able to stop watching, that kind of thing. So anyway, I should look back at the comments here. Sort of like the Pieta, some of those fashions are. What a moment for Miss Dion in Paris after all she'd been through for months before. Well, actually, it wasn't just months. It was years. Her illness, she, at one point, she didn't even know she would ever sing again. And it was just heartbreaking. You may have seen the documentary about her. I think it's on the Hulu streaming service where she talks about this, and she talked about it before, and how, I understand this as an artist, when you have something like that in your life, it's just your identity. It's who you are. Not to say it's your whole identity. I don't mean to imply that, but it's intrinsic to who you are and your expression in the world. And for Celine, with one of the most magnificent voices of all time, and her whole career based on that, it was particularly heartbreaking. And because of her illness, I think literally called stiff person syndrome, which causes uncontrollable muscle spasms and times where the body just freezes up. And anyone who does singing knows you're dependent on your diaphragm, your breath control, everything. Your body is your instrument. And so poor Selena didn't think she'd ever be able to sing again, but at the same time she knew she had to. And so I think that moment at the Eiffel Tower, I think it was like 2 billion people watching. I think there were people all over the world praying for her in that moment. Something got her through it. She was perfect. Just perfect. Hard to watch it even now and not cry. It's on YouTube. I highly recommend it if you've never seen it. Wendy, it's a black leather top hat. Wow, I didn't know that. With a leather band, and I sewed decorations and tiny bottles of herbs to give a nod to her naturopathic doctor. Yes, Whimsy loved that. Oh, that was not lost on her. She adored it. She's in addition to being a wonderful naturopathic doctor, she is an herbalist. At one point, she's trained me quite a bit. I have, believe it or not, a naturopathic doctor's assistant license because of her. Because of that wonderful woman who took me under her wing. Took me under her wing and taught me herself. Actually had me over at her home, cooked me dinners, and then we'd sit down and just hit the medical books. And I'd say, Whimsy, I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. And she said, oh, get over that. She said, I wish Whimsy were on right now. She was on last week. She said, Chuck, every one of us, when I was in medical school, we were all scared. You think I wasn't scared? You think I didn't go, I can't learn this. This is too much. And she said, any medical student who tried to say they weren't scared was lying. It's hard. She said, so just get over that. Accept it. And then she said, the first time you read it, it's going to be confusing. Second time, less confusing. But the third time, watch it start to make some sense. And by the fourth time, you'll have it. I thought, by God, she's right. She's right. And the other important thing she said to me with my little ADHD brain, my artist brain, she said, stop thinking of medicine as a science and think of it as an art. You know, how the trillions of things that go on in the human body, it's like a beautiful symphony orchestra, you know, all these beautiful notes coming together. Think of it as poetry in action. Think of it as astrology, all the stars and the planets in the sky outward. That's all inside of us. You know, this is the way Whimsy approached me. And by God, she took an imbecile like me. I know people say, don't call yourself an imbecile, but you know, I'm saying that facetiously. She took me and taught me what I thought was impossible. Let's see. Wendy, you haven't watched TV in years. Well, you know something, you're not missing much. You know, television has really deteriorated. I mean, I think most of the decent television now is on streaming services. I hate to say that, but you know, like Netflix and Amazon Prime, Hulu, things like that. There, I'm still seeing some quality acting and writing. Network television, a lot of it now, I think, because television and programming has spread out, the audiences have spread. Networks don't have the money to produce a lot of scripted programming anymore, so it's a lot of crappy game shows now. I don't want to put that down. There are people who love game shows. I'm not one of them. To me, it's such a passive waste of time to take a half hour of my life watching a game show. Now, I mean, something like Jeopardy, you at least learn something with that one, but most of the others, no. I'd rather be reading. I'd rather be writing. I'd rather be making a piece of art, or even listening to the news, listening to a podcast. I'd rather do that than watch it. But you're not missing that much of TV these years. And you're right, it is hypnotic. Yes, Noir, as you said, it was very triumphant for Celine Dion. Not unlike that French mistress of bogies in Casablanca singing the French national anthem. Yeah. Oh, God, I got to watch Casablanca again. Love that movie. You know, speaking of that, and this is off topic, but I talk about Hollywood. I did not know that Ingrid Bergman, the role that Kim Stanley played in Planet of the Apes, Kim Stanley, they put the ape makeup on her and everything. That role had been offered to Ingrid Bergman. She was the first choice. And Ingrid Bergman, I just learned this the other day. Ingrid Bergman said in an interview that was one of the greatest regrets of her career, because she initially didn't think much of the script and the premise. And after she saw the finished film, she wished she had done it, because she was at a point in her career where she kind of wanted to shed her old image and, break out, do offbeat character roles like that. I mean, so the thought of Ingrid Bergman and ape makeup, what a lost opportunity. Better get back to my comments here. Oh, yes, Ward. I sure was praying for Miss Dion to get through it. I was too. I think all of us are holding our collective breaths. Please get through it. Please get through it. And she more than got through it. Oh, boy. Talk about hitting it out of the park. That is I think that will go down as one of the great performances of all time. We see these clips on YouTube and stuff like Barbra Streisand and Judy Garland, the time they sang together, moments from Sinatra. Oh, I think that was a moment for the ages that will be played for decades to come. Truly one of the masters. Of course, Cissy Houston died today, Whitney Houston's mother. And I had forgotten this. I was reading, in the news today about it, that Cissy was the one who taught her daughter how to sing. Whoa. I'm sure that was proud mama, because Whimsy basically took what her mother gave her, the talent she was born with, but what her mother taught her, and just took it to other levels. I've been watching a lot of clips of Whitney Houston lately on things like Instagram and stuff, and whoa, incredible loss. Love that lady. Wendy, yeah, I'm a singer, I'm an artist. I can't imagine what Celine and Linda Ronstadt are going through. Yes, and of course, Linda Ronstadt, Parkinson's disease has robbed her of her singing voice. She can no longer sing. And, I relate. If I couldn't paint, draw, write anymore, I don't know what I'd do, because it truly would be a part of me that died. As I said earlier, it's not that you're wrapping your identity and self-worth in this, but it's just who we are. It's our expression in the world. It's what we're born to do in this world. To have that taken away, I'll tell story here. I'm sure you know about Julie Andrews. Oh, Judy, thank you for subscribing. Thank you. I'm going to actually mention your book here later. But Julie Andrews, what happened to her? She was on Broadway doing the stage version of Victoria. Now, it's one thing when you're doing a movie and you pre-record the soundtrack and you can take all the time you need to rest your voice and do multiple takes and so forth. But when you're doing that 8 shows a week, another story. Very demanding score, because she had to not only sing in her upper soprano range, she also had to do that lower voice when she was being Victor, being the man. So it took toll on her vocal cords, and she developed vocal cord nodes. And she went to someone who was supposed to be a very trusted doctor, ear, nose, throat doctor, someone who had done these type of surgeries, and assured her it'd be okay. No, she lost her whole upper range. Julie Andrews, her beautiful 4-octave soprano range, gone forever because of that doctor. Now, I don't know how much the vocal cord nodes figured into it. I'm being careful what I say without knowing all the facts. I do know she sued that doctor and got a huge out-of-court settlement. So obviously the doctor was liable. But when I was working at the time in Brentwood, here, it's a neighborhood in Los Angeles, very high class, ritzy, a lot of wealthy, famous people live in Brentwood. And again, it was in the health industry. And Blake Edwards, her husband, used to come in, and we would, there were celebrities like that we could talk to, like a friend, when they came in all the time. And we asked him, well, how's Julie doing? And I'll never forget this, Blake Edwards. He got teary-eyed. He said, it's not good. It's the saddest thing you've ever seen. Her voice is gone. Her beautiful singing voice is gone. It's gone. And she's tried so hard to get it back. She's done everything. She's been to so many doctors. Nobody can help her. But to hear it from him and see the tears in his eyes. And I later saw something, because Julie Andrews and Carol Burnett are very close. And as they have been for like more than 6 decades. And I read that Julie would call Carol on the phone, just crying and crying over it. And it was so hard for her, because it was who she was. It was so intrinsic to her singing voice. She'd had it since she was a little girl. She was singing in concert halls in England when she was 12 years old. And you've listened to those early recordings, like when she did My Fair Lady. Oh God, what a beautiful voice. Camelot. So that was the story. That's my personal story there, just talking to Blake Edwards about it. And then I'll just throw this in. I have to tell this as the rest of the story before I get back to the comments. It was a number of years later, I saw her at the Hollywood Bowl. And it was more or less announced, as I recall, she was just going to host the evening. It was a night of Broadway music, and she was going to be the mistress of ceremonies. Well, Julie Andrews came out, and I was thrilled. I'd always wanted to see her in person. In fact, I still have a wish that I'll meet her one day, because I had a childhood crush on her and I saw Mary Poppins. I'll admit to that. And I'd love to meet her and just tell her she was my first big crush. But anyway, I went to the Hollywood Bowl. Julie Andrews came out looking lovely, beautiful gown. And at the bowl, they brought down a great big movie screen, and they were playing clips of her career. And then the last clip, of course, was that famous scene where she's on the mountaintop. The hills are alive, that number. And wonderful applause. And Julie pointed to the movie screen and she said, "Unfortunately, I can no longer sing like that lady up on the screen. But tonight, for the first time, I'm going to try." The audience went berserk. And I was like, oh my God, Julie Andrews is going to sing. Well, what she did do, she sang. It turns out, if you've seen Victor Victoria, when she was singing as Victor the Man, when she was singing in her lower range, Julie Andrews still has her lower range. So she sang My Funny Valentine, which is written in that lower range. And it was almost like the old grand Julie Andrews again. You just had to kind of realize she wasn't going to hit those high soaring notes anymore, but she was able to do that. And it's my understanding she did a lot of work, a lot of therapy, a lot of training to get to where she could even sing that well, because there was a period her voice was just gone. And in fact, I think Celine Dion recommended her own voice doctor to Julie Andrews. So I don't know if Julie followed through there. I don't know what the whole story is, but let's see here. I'm looking at the comments here. Nothing can take the legacy. Some minutes have Miss Ronstadt. Yeah. Nothing like the classic What's My Line or To Tell the Truth. Yeah, that's fun to watch. Sometimes I watch those reruns. You know what I always liked about that was Peggy Cass and Kitty Carlisle, because you could not have had two more opposite women. Remember, Kitty would come out twirling and with the talk about overdressed. She'd be wearing these high couture evening gowns and jewels. And then there'd be Peggy coming out with her sweater and Peter Pan collar and looking very simple by comparison. And I read Kitty Carlisle's autobiography, and she said they used to joke about it. And she said she and Peggy were very good friends in real life. But they were, one time before they were going to do the show, they were standing in the wings, and Kitty was in her gown, and there was Peggy in her sweater. And Peggy said, "Well, you'd never know that you and I are going to the same party, now would you?" But I remember reading an interview with Kitty Carlisle, and she was going, "Oh, I was just on the phone with Peggy yesterday. We talked for a couple of hours." So they had that friendship of opposites. And I think I always enjoyed that. And I've told the story of the time I saw Kitty Carlisle perform, and she was 94 years old, here in Los Angeles. It was only a 45-minute show. It was just her and a pianist, like a little cabaret thing. She just sang a few songs, and that was okay. I just wanted to see her. And she told stories, being married, when she was married to Moss Hart, and how she used to know the Marx Brothers and, of course, worked with them in a movie. So she had wonderful Hollywood stories, but she still had a good singing voice. Amazing for 94. And I remember what was really special. She wore this beautiful gown. What else would she have worn but a beautiful gown? But it was slit up the side, high, almost up to her hip, to show off her legs. And Kitty lifted her dress ever so much to let her leg come out. And she goes, "They're the last thing to go." The audience adored her. Let's see what else the comments here. Ward, Kim Hunter. Did I not say Kim Hunter? I may have said another Kim by mistake. I don't know. It's that stream of consciousness when I get on here and just start talking. Yeah, well, Miss Bergman did do Cactus Flower, and she was good in that. And that was around that same time. But you have to admit, it would have been fun to have seen Ingrid Bergman with ape makeup on, and to just seeing what she would have done with that, because she was such a sublime actress. And I think some of the actors who worked on Planet of the Apes, and had to be buried and all that ape makeup, said that was part of the challenge, to be able to act with your eyes and your voice and just still come across, even though you had heavy makeup on that took many hours to apply. Let's see. Oh yes, yeah, I saw that, Ward, about I saw that on the news today when they were showing her obituary. They showed her singing with Elvis. Sissy had quite a career in her own right, but I think there's no question her daughter definitely eclipsed her. But I think Sissy was more than fine with that. Yeah, I'm sure she was so proud of her extraordinary daughter. Yes, and more. Julie Andrews became a children's book writer after she lost the soprano range. And she talked about that in an interview. She and her daughter, Emma Walton, collaborate together. And I think they've written close to 30 children's books. And Julie Andrews talked about that, about how when you've lost something as dear as she lost, you have to survive. You have to go on. It's like, okay, what else can I do? What else can I do? And and something else Julie Andrews branched out into, voiceover work for animation. Something I don't think she ever expected to do, but this just came out of, what else can I do? What are other ways I can use my talents? So yeah, she became a very big voiceover artist. And I was reading that during the pandemic, the lockdown, remember the days when we were all stuck at home and the internet suddenly became our friend? And I remember seeing a posting with her. I think it was a video where she was talking, and she said, well, I can't go to the studio. They said, we need you to, it was, what are those Despicable Me movies, I think? They needed her to record just a little bit more dialogue so they could finish the movie. But the studios were all locked down, and she's like, well, what can I do here? And it turns out her grandson is a sound engineer. And he said, Granny, I'll build you a sound booth. And he did. He took a closet upstairs, and he just took stuff around the house, like mattress, like old mattress pads and pillows and blankets, and covered the walls, and he made a soundproof booth. And I think Julie said the final thing was she had to put a blanket over her head with the microphone in the closet, but she was able to record the final bit she needed to finish the movie. And then after the pandemic, I think I heard her say that, I prefer this to the one at the studio. I don't have to get dressed, put my makeup on, leave the house. I can just do it here. So I think that's how she records to this day. Let's see. What are other comments here? Yes, it's very tragic and outrageous what happened to Miss Andrews. It's just, yeah, I always looked at that as a loss to the world, because her voice was just it was an international treasure. And anything takes that away, it's a tragedy. But when I saw Blake Edwards' tears in his eyes, that told me everything. How devastating this was for both of them. But Julie Andrews is still here. I think she's 88, or no, wait, I think I saw she's 89 now. We saw her last year with her best friend Carol Burnett at Carol's 90th birthday, and now she's gonna have hers next year. It's a new vocation. It's not necessarily a calling. Well, I don't know. I think we can have multiple callings. I think obviously her singing, her greatest calling, no question. But she's also a wonderful actress, a wonderful comedian, a personality, a voice artist, a writer. She's strived to make the best of her situation. Yeah, I love seeing that celebration, the two of them together, and and just seeing the love that Julie Andrews and Carol Burnett share. They both have autobiographies and they both have accounts of the first time they met. And I think Julie Andrews, when she was doing, they were both honored at the Kennedy Center in different years. Carol honored Julie and Julie honored Carol even there. And Julie Andrews came out, and I'm paraphrasing this, but it's on YouTube, where she said, well, Carol, you and I, when we met, we were Broadway royalty, meaning Julie Andrews was playing she was doing Camelot at the time, and Carol Burnett was playing the princess in Once Upon a Mattress. So they were both Broadway royalty. And the story was that I think it was their agents or managers knew each other, and they just thought, oh, we got to get these two women together. They will hit it off. And they both told the same story about how it was a double date in a restaurant. I think they were in a Chinese restaurant or something. And Julie and Carol started chatting. And they both said, those poor guys we were dating, they didn't have a chance. Those poor guys were just sitting there left in the dust. And because Julie and Carol just started talking and talking and talking and talking. And it was just love at first sight. And even though they seem so opposite, they both pointed out they had so much in common, because they both had somewhat tragic childhoods, with alcoholism in the family. They both grew up very poor and never forgot that. And so that was a big thing that bonded them together. And let's see, what are some other comments here? Peggy Cass was brilliant, even though she always played ditzes. Well, you know what? Peggy Cass was a smart woman. You watch those shows, she asked some of the most intelligent and diverse questions of anybody on those panels. But yeah, and Kitty did shine in that Marx Brothers movie. I don't know why she did so few films, unless maybe it's because of Moss Hart and she was more based in New York and the Broadway circle and all. I also have a friend who got to visit her in her apartment. This was when she was well into her 90s. She died at 96, but he visited her in her 90s. And he told me about all the memorabilia she had. She had all these wonderful signed photos on her piano and things from her career. But he said she was so sweet to him. And he said, let me think, what did he say? He said, you know what? My late mother, would be so excited for me right now, because we used to watch you on To Tell the Truth. And she'd be so proud to know that I'm sitting here in my home, in your home, talking to you right now. And he said, Kitty, her eyes almost filled up with tears. And she had the sweetest, most loving smile. And she put his hand on his, and she really appreciated that comment. I think that was part of Kitty's appeal. She came across like such the aristocrat. Ooh, like you would expect her to be snobbish or something. The gowns and everything. No, all of her sweet, down-to-earth lady. And that's kind of what I saw when I saw her on the cabaret stage. Let me see some comments here. Oh, yeah, Roddy McDowell had great chemistry with Kim Hunter through the makeup. You might have seen the Carol Burnett episode he guest starred on. Certainly the clip is on YouTube. It plays and plays, where Roddy graciously agreed to spend 3.5 hours in the makeup chair being made up in the 8 makeup so he could just do this one sketch with Carol Burnett. Came out and sang with her and performed, and it's endearing. Yeah, Miss Andrews' grandson built a retro soundstage, but it sure as heck worked. Yeah, Kitty Carlisle, highbrow, but fun. Yeah, a lot of fun. So, that's the thing when I do this live stream. As of late, I never know what direction it's going to go in, but I just find all of you wonderful people give me things to talk about and to go in. But let's see, I did have things prepared here, but Maybe I could talk about these next week, or I'll talk about them now. Let's see. Saturday night, I went to USC. I went to see Michael Feinstein perform, thanks to a very good friend of mine who had an extra ticket. And he was doing a tribute to Tony Bennett. And he had the Carnegie Hall band on stage with him, and the acoustics in the theater were so good. It was such a treat to hear live music like that, and to also be reminded of the masterful Tony Bennett. I met him once. I met him back in 1991. It was at a CD signing, and I was one of the first people in line. So I got to actually talk to him a little longer than most of the people. And he was so excited because he had just gotten the news that his CD had hit #1 on the jazz charts. And he was telling me about it, and he was euphoric. So that was sweet. And then I twice saw him sing at the Hollywood Bowl, once by himself. The last time, one of the greatest concerts I ever saw in my life. And I've seen Streisand 4 times, but it was one of the best concerts ever. It was his teaming with Lady Gaga. And interestingly enough, the friend I went with who took me to see Michael Feinstein, she was going, well, what was he doing with Lady Gaga? Did she come out and be the opening actor to me? I said, no, you did. They did 2 albums together. I think both hit #1. One of them won the Grammy album I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that won the Grammy album of the year. But anyway, it was a full-fledged show. And, it was recorded, I think, for PBS, and there have been other versions, like CBS did a special with the 2 of them. But yeah, it was the 2 of them singing together, and then they go off and do their individual things, and they come back together again. Both of them electric that night. And what was amazing about Tony Bennett, I think he was 89 years old at the time. And I have a collection of Tony Bennett music, CDs, like his stuff going all the way back to the 1950s. And I sat there and closed my eyes and listened. And I thought, my God, 89 years old, he's singing better, literally singing better than he did 50 years earlier. And he was hitting these soaring high notes and belting them out. 89 years old. It wasn't a case of an older star just going out there and kind of riding on the coattails of their past achievements and what they've done before. It was a very relevant singer going out there and who still had it. And Lady Gaga, my God, one of the voices of all time. So what a night that was. And I know I think of that cliche. It's cliche now, but I think it was Katharine Hepburn originally said this of Starin Rogers. He gives her class, she gives him sex. Sex appeal, that type of thing. I thought, yeah, Lady Gaga made Tony Bennett young and hip and relevant. And in turn, he gave her wonderful class and gravitas. It was very exciting to watch their chemistry, because those 2 people genuinely loved each other and genuinely respected each other. And you saw that every moment they were on the stage together, the affection that they shared, and just the sheer joy they took in each other, and the sheer joy they took in performing together. So I will never forget that night as long as I live. Better look at some comments here. Yeah, look for the clip with Roddy McDowell and the ape makeup. I'm sure you'll easily find it. Easily. Yeah, but that's where he played Eunice's brother Philip. I think that was the very first Eunice sketch they ever did, if I'm not mistaken. And of course they never explained his British accent. Where Eunice was talking like this, and Mama, he was speaking highfalutin, polished, high tea British, but it worked. Yeah, Mr. Bennett was one of the last of the classic pre-rock era singers. Yeah, he's great man, and yeah, he did make the most of his relevance with Lady Gaga. Well, a lot of that had to do with his son. I forget his son's name, but his son became his father's manager sometime, I think, in the 1980s. And it was one of the best career moves Tony Bennett ever made. And he said that his son set to work to make his father relevant to the younger crowd. Like, if you'll recall, Tony Bennett did an MTV special. Remember, they used to do the MTV Unplugged things? Tony Bennett did an MTV special. He did music videos. His son knew exactly how to market his father and just gave basically Tony a whole new career, which I think part of that was how he ended up with Lady Gaga. And I know it originally started when Tony Bennett's 80th birthday. He did a CD of duets with many different performers, one of those being Lady Gaga. But I think his son kind of nudged them, hey, you guys need to work together. And I think Lady Gaga was just thrilled. And Lady Gaga was even talking about, they're both Italian. I think their families even knew each other. And she just said, Tony just is my family. It's just as simple as that. And something that really touched me. I don't know if it's still available to watch on Paramount Plus, which is the CBS streaming channel. CBS is owned by Paramount, and there was a special. It was recorded shortly before Tony died. And the story, he was in the thick of Alzheimer's disease, but by some miracle, the Alzheimer's did not affect the part of his brain where he remembered song lyrics and singing and how to perform in front of an audience. Doctors even talked about that. It was so deeply ingrained into him that not even Alzheimer's could destroy it. So he was out there on the stage, and you could see Gaga was being very, very, very careful to protect him on stage. I think she planned out every scenario. She had a plan A, B, C, D, E, F for anything that could go wrong that night. Not that she wanted that, but she had to be prepared. She was there to take care of him on stage. Like, if something went wrong, she could intercede and take over the show or something. And at the same time, preserve his dignity. She did a very similar thing for Liza Minnelli at the Oscars, maybe 3 years ago. Liza, if you've ever seen that, Liza was in a wheelchair, and you could see she was having some memory issues. God bless her, but she was having some problems. And at one point she froze on stage, and she had some cards, and she got her cards mixed up, and the mics were on, and you could overhear Gaga just going, "Don't worry, I've got you. I'll take care of you." And I was so impressed with how tender Lady Gaga was, and so respectful of Liza, basically saying to the audience, folks, this woman is a legend. Treat her with the respect she is due. That came across. So that came across in the special with Tony Bennett. She was doing the same thing for him, ever so subtly, but she was there to protect his dignity no matter what. Well, he, of course, got through the show just fine. There were moments you could see the Alzheimer's, you could see the blank stare in his eyes, you could see he was lost. But Gaga was there covering for him. And one of the most touching moments, I hope that special is still on there. It's on YouTube or something. But it was his very last song. And it was literally the last song he was ever going to sing before the public. And of course, it was I Left My Heart in San Francisco. But I remember Lady Gaga going, Tony, would you please sing I Left My Heart in San Francisco, because there's nobody in the world who sings it like you. Oh my God, that was beautiful. And he sang it and got the most beautiful, beautiful ovation from the audience. And then Gaga came out and said, Mr. Bennett, and she took his arm ever so gently and said, Mr. Bennett, Tony, or I'm paraphrasing, but to that effect, may I please have the honor of escorting you from the stage? And she took him off the stage to a massive standing ovation. Very much worth watching. Wow, I didn't plan on talking about this today, but that's the beauty of the show. Oh my God, we're almost at an hour here. I didn't. Oh, hi, Pam. I didn't even see you were on here. I've said this before. When I'm doing the show and I'm looking straight ahead, sometimes reading the comments at the same time, and I've had this problem with Whimsy's show too. It's like patting your head and rubbing your stomach and drinking a glass of water at the same time, and takes coordination, and I need to be a little more adept at this. I need like one of those teleprompters where the lines are just right on the screen in front of me, so I can just sit here giving the illusion that I'm talking and I'm reading you at the same time. Let me see, what are some other comments here? Yeah, Pam, you were saying she has a tattoo on her arm honoring him. She has quite a number of tattoos, actually, but I didn't know about that one. But that doesn't surprise me one bit. I wonder if she got the tattoo in his lifetime. Would you know, Pam? Or anyone know? Another thing, you want to watch a breathtaking performance that is so sublime. And this is on YouTube. It was at the Oscars, and it was the 50th anniversary of, was it 50th or 60th anniversary of 50th anniversary of The Sound of Music. Of course, because that was a 1965 film. That'd be next year. But it was the anniversary of The Sound of Music, and Gaga first of all, she looked beautiful. She dressed in a beautiful gown, and she had her hair down, and they had a full orchestra. And she came out to sing a medley of the songs from Sound of Music. And out came this exquisite operatic soprano. And it was like, whoa, none of us were expecting that. And it later came out. Gaga said she spent 6 months working every day with a vocal coach to get ready for that performance. It meant so much to her, and she was so letter perfect. And Julie Andrews was came on stage from the wings, crying and hugging her, and was so moved by the performance. I highly recommend that. It's on her upper arm. Yeah, I will look for that. I'll look for that when I get off the air here, go on the internet. And Wendy, thank you for the suggestion, liking, subscribing. Thank you. I really appreciate that very, very much. So Mr. Bennett's singing was ingrained like Mel Blanc's Looney Tune voices were ingrained on his brain, which got him out of a coma. Yes, that's right. That's right. I know that story because he was in a very serious car accident. I think he was even in a body cast. I saw a photo once where he was encased in plaster and bandages, and his arms were up in slings. And it was during the radio era. I guess I'm assuming it was the 1940s, because B. Benaderet and another woman were their scripts. And I think they actually brought the microphones and sound equipment into his hospital room so he could do the radio shows from his hospital bed. But I've heard that story about how that got him out of his coma. And something, I'll mention this. When I used to work in Brentwood, I used to talk to his son, Noel. And Noel took over for his father. And Noel does many of the voices. He does Bugs Bunny just as well as his father. And I remember seeing, it was one of the last televised interviews with Mel Blanc, and they were together. And Mel was talking about, he believed it was genetic because, the structure of their faces, their nasal passages, vocal cords were so similar, father and son. And Mel said, my son is the only one who can do these voices right. The only one. He said, it's just genetic. It's talent, but it's also just physical genetics. That's why he can do these voices so well. And so I was happy I got to meet Noel. And I've been to Mel Blanc's grave at Hollywood's Forever Cemetery, which is where Judy Garland is, and Rudolph Valentino and Mickey Rooney and Poland Negri, and all. It's quite fascinating to go there. But on his grave, you probably know this already, it just says, "That's all, folks." It's big tagline. Oh my God, the joy he brought to us through his voice. Yeah, I'm looking at some other comments. Yeah, it was lovely what Lady Gaga did for Liza Minnelli. I read that Liza is writing her autobiography right now. And she always said that she would never do that. But I have a hunch because of Barbara Streisand's autobiography last year, it might have been an impetus for Liza. But I read also Liza is just sick and tired of all the rumors, all the fabrications, all of the misquotes. She wants to set the record straight. But I think that's going to be a fascinating book just to hear what she has to say about her mother, Judy Garland, growing up. I definitely will look forward to that. And interestingly enough, Michael Feinstein, I saw sing Saturday night, he's a close friend of hers, and he's helping her write the book. So we'll see what that's going to be. Yes, Ward, you're right. He had to do Barney Rubble Flintstones still in a body cast. I think that's incredible that he could work that way. That's a testament to just how, sorry for scratching my back there, how intrinsic that talent was to him. It was just there, and it served him even during times like that. Yeah, Miss Minnelli wants to clear the air the best way she can. And, I've never met Liza. I have seen her. I've seen her twice in concert, and I did see her in person back in the days, back in the 80s, 90s. And I lived in West Hollywood, and I used to walk up the hill to the old Spago's restaurant on Oscar night, because one of the big Oscar parties was held there. And it was just a tiny little street, went off to the side up the hill of the restaurant. And that's where the limos would pull to let the stars out. And we were like 25 feet away. And, a lot of the stars were like, wave or something, or they just ignore us altogether and go in. There would be a handful who would walk over to us. And one of them was Liza. And I was with a friend who was actually not a fan of hers. He would actually say, ew, I can't stand her. I'm not a fan of hers. He was very touched. He said, that was really beautiful what she did. What a sweet person she is. Because she went over, I didn't shake hands with her, but she shook hands with other people. And I remember putting her hands over her head and blowing kisses to everyone and thanking people. Very classy gesture from Liza. And I understand she's like her mother, a very, very sensitive soul. And she gets hurt a lot by all the mean things that get said, all the awful rumors and things. So, yeah, I'm glad she's writing her autobiography. Very glad. Set the record straight. I loved Barbara Streisand's book for the same reason, the way she set the record straight on a lot of things. Liza did learn to value the audience from Judy Garland. The few things I have read in biographies, her mother did take her aside and teach her a lot of things. There was a story in, I think it was Gerald Frank's book about Judy, where young Liza, when she was a teenager, got a role on a TV show or something. It was some minor little role, like a few lines. But she said, Mama, could you help me make this special? Could you help me find something in this? And Judy was delighted. And she said the two of them, oddly enough, were in the bathroom sitting on the edge of the bathtub. And Judy put on her little half glasses and was reading the script. And it was the part of a girl who had teenage girl had an abortion, which is amazing in those days. This had to have been like in the 60s, this topic. And it was very pat little dialogue. And Judy started giving Liza subtext. And I don't remember the specifics here, but it was like that one of the lines was something like the doctor going, well, you'll have more children and you'll be okay and you'll put this behind you. And Judy told Liza, no, you got to think in your head while he's saying that to you, you son of a bitch. How dare you? How dare you? Or something like that. You don't know what I've just gone through. You don't know the hell I've gone through. It was like that. Judy was sharing her acting genius with Liza, subtext, things you think about behind a simple little line that brings it to life, that gives that flash in the eyes, that subtle little emotion that the audience gets. So I remember that. And I'm sure Judy must have given Liza some voice coaching, because I know they performed together. They performed on Judy Garland's 1963 variety show. And then they did a series of concerts in London. In fact, there's an album that was recorded from that. So I have to believe Mama Judy helped Liza with things. But hey, when your mother is Judy Garland, you damn well better be smart and listen. I saw an interview with Jason Gould, Barbra Streisand's son of Barbra Streisand and Elliot Gould, and he became a late life singer. I don't think he recorded his first EP until he was like 50 years old, because he was so scared of being, for a number of reasons, but one of those was being compared to his mother. He was terrified. And the interviewer said, well, did your mother give you voice lessons? And he laughed and said, no, my mother never even had voice lessons, so she wouldn't know how to teach voice even if she wanted to. So I thought that was kind of funny. But I just the same, I have a feeling Mama Barbara gave her son some tips, some pointers here and there. The last time I saw Barbra Streisand perform on stage was at the Hollywood Bowl back in 2012. And she had her son Jason come out and sing a duet. You may have seen it on YouTube, and there was a PBS special. They sang How Deep is the Ocean. As Barbara said, it's just the perfect song for a mother and son. The lyrics, how much I love you, let me count the ways, how deep is the ocean. It was just perfect, and they were beautiful together. But after they did their duet, oh, this is where I got to see Barbara be the proud Jewish mother. It was so adorable. Look at my son. Let me show off my son, how wonderful my son is. That was a fun sight of Barbara to see. And she turned the show over to him to sing 3 songs. And it was so cute. Barbara pointed up, the lighting. People said, now turn the lights off on me. I'm just going to take this folding chair and I'm going to sit on the side of the stage and watch and enjoy him along with the rest of you. But forget I'm here. Now, how many people would Barbra Streisand have said that for, except for her beloved son? And he sang 3 songs and he was marvelous. And he had such stage presence and he had such confidence and such a command of the audience. Now, some of that may be just, like I said, genetic with Mel Blanc and his son Noel, Liza and Judy, they're just things that do get passed down. So maybe that was inherited from his mother, but I'm sure Mama, the director, Mama, the perfectionist, was probably coaching Jason, and I think he was smart enough to listen to his mother, Barbra Streisand. There were some comments here. Yeah, that was quite a daring topic at the time. Judy was fabulous in Judgment in Nuremberg. I was just having this conversation with my friend at the Michael Feinstein concert, because Michael Feinstein had just done a concert tour honoring Judy. And my friend's an actress. And I just said, I'm sure you're in agreement with me, if Judy Garland could never have sung one single note, she would have been one of our greatest actresses of the 20th century. Watch her in the 1954 Stars Born. Watch her in Judgment at Nuremberg. Oh my God. Oh my God, what a breathtaking performance. And I mean breathtaking. I remember the first time I saw that, I was gasping watching her. Yes, literally took my breath away. And even watch her in The Wizard of Oz, some of those moments, like when she's trapped in the witch's castle and she's crying and wanting to get home to Auntie Em. Oh my God, that was a gifted actress there. You saw it even there. And whereas you just said, yeah, how could anyone ever forget Streisand on the stage? I've been lucky 4 times. My very, very favorite singer. And, she didn't perform for 27 years. Stage fright. You probably know the story already, how she blanked out and forgot lyrics when she was doing her Central Park concert, the one that was free to the public. And of course, it was televised as a special. And she said it spooked her so badly. But she later said in her autobiography, she also got a death threat that night. So she was literally scared of being shot on stage. Thank God nothing like that even came close to happening, but she was fearful. So I think all of that contributed to stage fright that lasted for the next 27 years. And she tested the waters New Year's Eve 1993 when she gave a concert in Las Vegas. That was testing the waters because I think she was planning a tour coming back, and she did that spring. She did a big tour based on that show with the same sets and costumes and everything. And Barbara said what made the difference for her: one, teleprompters. She could have a monitor up above where she had all of her lyrics. And when I saw her the first time, I was 10 rows center. I was close enough where I could look up, I could see her teleprompters, and a little too much, because even her so-called ad-libbed patter and dialogue with the audience, I was looking up, reading every word of it on the teleprompter. There was no ad-libbing in that show. Nothing was left to chance, but she's such a good actress. She pulled it off and made it look believable. And I was thrilled to see Streisand on stage. I even feel I was close enough to her that I could hear her natural voice without the amplification. And to hear that first song and to hear that vibrato, oh my God. Because I became a fan of hers when I was 14. I saw The Way We Were in the movie theater, and then I saw Funny Girl on TV. The movie her first movie she won the Best Actress Oscar for. And I don't have to tell you how electrifying she is in that. And I defy anybody to watch Funny Girl and not become a Barbra Streisand fan. So I had been buying her albums and listening to her, and I'm sitting there, as corny as this sounds, marveling. I'm hearing her real voice coming out of her body, coming out of her diaphragm, her vocal cords coming out. I'm hearing her real voice. I'm not hearing a recording. Oh, that was so exciting for me. Ever see her in What's Up, Doc? Of course I've seen her in What's Up, Doc. Oh, Barbara is a wonderful comedian. She, I think a great tragedy is she only made 19 movies. I'm glad we have what we have, but I wish she'd worked a lot more. I think Barbara even alluded to this. One of the problems for her was not only did she have a giant movie career, she had a giant recording career. These were two major careers that she had to juggle and balance together. So it kind of affected both. She probably should have done more albums. So I think she's done like 60, so that's a lot, but I think she could have done more albums. She could have done more movies, vice versa. She had to switch her energy back and forth. And if Joyce Petrus were watching right now, the gifted astrologer, Mystic Souls Insight, Joyce is a Taurus. Barbra Streisand is a Taurus. And Barbara even admitted this herself. She said, I'm very, very anxious. I'm very driven. I'm very ambitious, but I'm also very lazy at the same time. It's a dichotomy. Like, I have to have periods where I just need to take months off and do nothing. And of course, as rich as she has that luxury to do that. But that's an interesting thing. My big regret, talking about Streisand in movies, she was Lillian Hellman's first choice for the movie Julia, which of course went to Jane Fonda and of course Vanessa Redgrave. Oh, it's just one of the greatest movies ever made. And it's based on a true story of Lillian Hellman. Most of the plot of the movie is her friendship with Julia, and Julia is in Nazi Germany helping Jews to escape. And she contacts Lillian back in the States. I need you to do a very important favor for me. Or actually, it was in the States. I'm sorry. If you've seen the movie, you know I made a mistake there. She was in Europe on a vacation. So Julia reached out to her and said, there's a very important mission I want you to do for me. And you don't have to accept this if you don't want, because it's going to be very dangerous. Yes, Lord, it was in Paris. I remember that scene with Maximilian Schell, and he's saying, you don't have to accept this if you don't want. But she had a hat with money sewn into the hat. And that's how she smuggled it. And the train had to go through Nazi Germany, and Lillian Hellman was Jewish. It's a true story. I've read the book, and it's one of the rare times where the movie script is measure for measure identical to the book. You know, we all know how movies take liberties and change things. Not in this case. Even the dialogue is the same as Lillian Hellman wrote. Read the book, Pentimento. It just brings the whole movie back to life. And I've always thought that movie felt like an Alfred Hitchcock film. There is so much suspense in it. And you've got 2 Academy Award winning performances, Vanessa Redgrave and Jason Robards. Vanessa Redgrave was just incredible. But I always thought Jane Fonda should have won the Oscar. But anyway, to get around to the point, that was originally offered to Barbra Streisand. And even Barbra Streisand said, God, I was stupid. That was the biggest career mistake I ever made. Lillian Hellman handpicked her for the role. She turned it down. But anyway, Jane Fonda's fortune. Oh yeah, that scene with Streisand and Garland is it's on the Judy Garland show. And hearing those 2 voices together is amazing. Yeah, one of the great train rides in movie history. Oh yes, and the box of chocolates to detract. You know, I remember all that. It was just, I don't want to ruin the movie for people, but yes, if you can rent the movie Julia with Jane Fonda and Vanessa Redgrave, made in 1977, I promise you will not be disappointed. It's a lavish film. I mean, beautiful cinematography. It's got a great screenplay, great performances, beautiful sets, costumes, 1930s. One of my favorite films ever. Yeah, got to mention sucker for steam engine trains. You know, on my trips to Europe, I've done a lot of train travel. You know, train travel is much bigger there. You know, they're much bigger on public transportation than us spoiled Americans. But it's such a treat to be on real passenger trains like that. You know, when I say real, like with dining cars and all that, kind of have an unhappy story with a dining car. I was on the train going from Paris to Amsterdam. And my friend and I, we ate in the dining car, and I hung my nice leather jacket on the hook. And this was back in the ancient days when we had cameras with film. And I brought my nice 35 millimeter Canon AE1, you know, with my rolls of 35 millimeter film. And I had all these rolls of film in the pockets of the jacket with all these fabulous pictures I had taken in London and in Paris and what have you, and all these great memories. Oh, I get sick even thinking about this. In my naivete, I didn't know they take dining cars off of trains because we had a stopover in Brussels. I had just forgotten that I had hung my jacket on the hook. And as our choo-choo train was heading toward Amsterdam, it was like, oh, my jacket with all my camera film. I left it in the dining car. Went back there. It's gone. There's no dining car. What happened? And conductor said, oh, we took that off in Brussels. So needless to say, I never got my beautiful leather jacket back, and all those pictures lost forever. Anyway, those are the breaks. Anyway, there were things I was going to talk about, but I have gone on 6 hours and 15 minutes here, so I've got to wrap this up. But I don't know if anybody has like a closing question or comment or anything you'd like me to address before I go. Otherwise, if I don't see anything pop up in the moment here, Lucy story by any chance? Yeah, but if I do that, I'm going to be on here another 25 minutes. Seriously, I think I might have to save it for next week, because yesterday was the 116th anniversary of Carole Lombard. And Carole Lombard was the woman that Lucille Ball cited as her single greatest comedic influence. And I have a lot of great stories. I think I'm going to save that for next week because otherwise this will go on forever. It's almost a show to itself. But needless to say, Carole Lombard was a tremendous influence on Lucy. I've told some of this before on here, like how Lucille Ball had doubts about giving up her movie career to do this unknown thing called television. I Love Lucy. She was really unsure. She was taking a major gamble because in those days, movie studios would blacklist you. Television was seen as the enemy of the movie industry. And in many ways it was. So Lucy knew she'd be blackballed. She wouldn't be able to go back to her film career. She did television and she was scared to death. And it was Carole Lombard who came to her in a dream and said, "Oh, honey, take a chance. Give it a whirl. It's going to be fabulous. Trust me. Do this." Well, Carole was prophetically right. Now, wasn't she? What the souls see in the spirit world for us. Oh, Carole was like, "Honey, don't be an idiot. Do this show." And she did. And Wendy, thank you for your sweet compliment there. Thank you. So Ward, how's that for a mini Lucy story for now? And I promise I will tell more. I've got plenty, but I wanted to tie in with Carole's birthday, but we can delay that for a bit. And I'm even looking here. I have my notebook here. I don't plan these shows, but I've told this sometimes I will just write down little prompts for myself. I try to be prepared. Like if I'm here and suddenly you see me staring like a deer in the headlights, like, what am I going to talk about now? Which I don't think happens too often, but I can just look down and prompt myself here. And I have to really do my homework with Dr. Whimsy Anderson's show, Taco Tuesdays, because that's the show where we talk about a lot of current events. And you bet your life I have to do my homework on Tuesday before I do that show. I have to get out my New York Times on my iPad. I have to look at CNN. There are writers I like Heather Cox Richardson, who is just marvelously sums up news of the day. And here you see a few little prompts. I will have pages of notes in front of me, and I have to take like a highlighter so I can glance down at certain lines and not get lost while I'm looking into the camera and doing the show, last week, Whimsy asked me a question about, I forget what it was. And I had all my notes in front of me. Only I glanced down and I can't find the part. And I later looked back on it and it was just a few seconds. But when you're doing a show like this, let me tell you, 5 seconds of dead air silence feels like 15 minutes. It's terrifying. And I'm like, where's my notes? Where's my notes? But I think I recovered okay. I'm still learning to be good with this, but ultimately I like doing these live shows. I've mentioned this to my dear friend Pam, who I think is still on here, that I've actually found I enjoy doing these more than the pre-taped segments. And that's why one of the reasons I don't mind getting on here on Mondays. This is just very off the cuff, shooting from the hip. All you wonderful people giving me prompts, questions, topics, and just having fun with it and seeing where it goes. And that's how I'm ending up with shows almost an hour and a half, when my original intention was to come on here for 30 minutes. And when I started doing this, I even thought, how am I going to fill up 30 minutes of airtime? Well, got over that one pretty fast. What was this? By the way, Miss Lillian was on the last Lucy show. Yeah, I think I mentioned that last week. I talked about that. Because we were talking about Jimmy Carter's 100th birthday. And Lucy did a television special where the premise was, this was when Jimmy Carter, for a time, was doing a novelty thing. And he first became president to stay in real people's homes. And I think later the Secret Service and security said, Mr. President, this is not a good idea. But anyway, the premise of it was that President Carter was going to, Lucy was playing a character. It wasn't Lucille Ball, but it was a character. President Carter was going to come and stay with her. And at the end of the show, it was Miss Lillian. They had Miss Lillian pre-tape a segment. Is this Miss Lucy? Well, Miss Lucy, Jimmy can't come, unfortunately, but would you like me to come and stay with you? Or something like that. But I still remember Miss Lillian going, is this Miss Lucy? Oh, I've been over my stage fright for a long time, Wendy. A long time. I think I got over that last year with Whimsy after like the second show or something, because ultimately when you do this, it's just almost like doing a Zoom call with friends. And I think a good thing that's helped me with stage fright is not to over prepare. When I was doing my first shows, I would spend like half the day, writing out things and reading and studying and preparing an outline for a show. And well, one of the things I learned when I was doing my videos, I've got a head full of worthless information. Meaning, I know this stuff already. It's up in my head. You can put a camera in front of me and I can just start talking. So I learned that from doing the videos, and I just kind of carried it over to here. But yeah, when I was studying acting with Dee Wallace, her whole technique, Dee Wallace, who played the mother in E.T. the Extraterrestrial, she dissuaded us from rehearsal and preparation. She was more about cold reading. Connect with your partner, your scene partner, have your script in front of you, cold read, but don't plan anything. She said, just look into the eyes of your partner, they look into yours, and you start exchanging energy, and you start channeling, and the emotions, the energy just start coming without even trying for it. And Dee said to us, over preparation is death. And so I see the merit now, where I'll just be making my phone calls for MC and working, and then it's like, oh, I have a show in 3 minutes, and I just get out the laptop, turn on the light, and type in my information and start talking. This is how I do the show now, and I think it serves me, and it certainly makes me a lot more comfortable. And it was the great spiritual writer Shakti Gawain, wrote Creative Visualization, the big best-selling book. She became my friend, and I visited her in her home in Tiburon across San Francisco Bay. And she said to me, because she traveled the world doing lectures, and she said to me, I never prepare for a lecture. I just get up on stage in front of the microphone and I just start talking, and I channel everything I need, and whatever that talk is supposed to be, it just comes through me. It's just there. So I took a cue from that as well. Just be natural for myself. So it's all steps in that. And I think for most people who do these shows, they tell you the same thing. They're nervous in the beginning. They're scared. It's foreign. It's new territory. And then you start doing it and it just becomes second nature. Pam, I don't know if you're still there or not, but we've talked about how we want to do. We might even I do the one with Whimsy. I do this on Monday. She and I are talking about possibly doing something together as well. And a lot of that comes from, Pam, I don't think you mind me telling this. I don't know if you're still on here or not, but, we talk a lot. We do video conferencing and so forth, and she's interviewed me for her own show on her channel, Pomona Remembers. Check her out, like, subscribe. She is brilliant at what she does. Gifted psychic, tarot reader, oracle cards, heart-centered remote viewing, and a brilliant artist. Why we connect so well. It's great when you can talk with your fellow artists and talk about your processes and things and share tips with each other. But we have found we work so well together on camera, just between the two of us, we might as well let all of you eavesdrop in. So we're going to see where that goes. And you see me bring my friend Anastasia Pavlov on here, because she and we get together. We're like two houses on fire talking. So we've done some shows together, or we just put the camera in front of us. And a few times we've gotten a little too outrageous. I remember there was one time we got way too bawdy. We couldn't help ourselves. It just came out. And I had somebody write me, "This is really bad taste. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should take this down," or something like that. And I apologized. And I did kind of feel bad about that because I'd never set out to offend people, but it happens. We can't help it. People construe things the way they do. Do I dare even bring up why we got chided? We were doing our own. Oh, hi Pam. I was just talking about you. I was just saying, I hope you don't mind me saying how well you and I work together, and we video talk all the time, and we have great chemistry. And you've interviewed me on your show and all, and we've just, I was just saying to the audience here, you and I just might do another show, us together, because we work so great together. We might as well let the audience just eavesdrop on us and listen to us in action. So I was just saying, I hope you don't mind me saying that. I say that with great affection and respect towards you and admiration. We may not do it, but hopefully we will. And anyway, I was just talking about how this came out of just how doing these shows, we all get more comfortable with it. We build our confidence, and this becomes second nature, and it becomes like a big Zoom call. But before we go, how's your hometown of Narrows doing? Do they have power and water yet? Yes, they do have power and water, from what I understand. And the water has gone down, but now there's all the devastation. The people who got hit the hardest, there was a trailer park along the river. There's a river goes through my town called the New River. We have a big bridge that connects the two halves of the town, and the water got so high it was actually touching the top of the bridge. Never in my lifetime did I see that, and it flooded a lot of businesses in downtown, and some homes are hit. But I understand the trailers were just devastated. I saw pictures of some of them flipped over on their sides, and some of them were all filled up with mud. And I hope and pray those people were fully insured. And one of the great things about little towns like where I grew up, everybody takes care of each other. It's great community. People pitch in. So I was reading stories on Facebook of people doing drives to collect clothing and blankets, diapers, canned goods, food, just what do these people need? Do you need me to take you into your home for a while? That's my little hometown. Now, I'm going to admit, when I was growing up there, I wanted to get the hell out of there. I mean, I had my eyes set on Hollywood and Los Angeles and just a bigger life. But no, that's not to say I'm not grateful, first of all, for the values that were instilled in me, those small town values. And I will always remember that, how people pitched in for each other. My wonderful mother and father did that. They pitched in for people. People pitched in for them. So I know that that's going on right now in that town, and that's a saving grace. But from the postings I see, it was such an emotional blow to people. People are having a hard time. It's going to take a long time to get over this, to recover from this. It was very, very traumatic. It was so bad, the governor of Virginia, and this was a big deal, let me tell you, for the governor of Virginia to travel the 300 miles to my little hometown to inspect it. And I saw pictures where he was shaking hands with people, hugging people, just there to give moral encouragement. And I thought that was amazing, because certainly in my lifetime, the governor of Virginia never came. Oh my God. I could go off on another story here, and I got to save this for another time. But Elizabeth Taylor came to my little hometown once, and it was because her husband, John Warner, was running for the Virginia Senate. And God bless Elizabeth Taylor. She was on a bus going from town to town to town, stumping for her husband, and Elizabeth Taylor came to my little hometown. I'll tell that story some other time. Let's see, where's some of the comments here. Pam, yes, you were thinking about it again today. Yeah, Pam. I mean, it's one of those things, we're just kicking it around right now and ideas and things. And that's the great thing about us. We work well together, and it's going to be whatever it's going to be. But I haven't forgotten about it. You haven't forgotten about it. And I didn't even talk about the wonderful project she and I are working on right now. It's something, a video we're putting together on behalf of Kamala Harris. Now, maybe I'll talk about that next week, since I've been on here for an hour and a half and I need to get off. But yes, Ward, Elizabeth Taylor was there in my hometown, and I wasn't. It was my night. It was the year I went off to college. The fall I went to college. My first semester of college was when Elizabeth Taylor came to my hometown, and I missed it. But I heard all the stories, all the people there. My mother was there, and people were saying, like, "Wow, her eyes really are violet. They really are." I was hearing stories like that, and oh my God, I'm never going to get off here. I told the story of how I knew one of her personal assistants, and he was going to set up a lunch for Elizabeth Taylor and me. This was the last year of her life. I've told this before, but I'll just show it quickly. For context here, it was the last year of her life, and he was going to get us together for a lunch. And unfortunately, Elizabeth, because it was the last year of her life, she was in extremely poor health. Her health was fading, congestive heart failure. She was in a wheelchair, and it just couldn't happen. There were all these near misses, near times where, hey, maybe tomorrow we can do this. Maybe we can do this. We didn't get together. And I told a story. Oh, if I can get this ring off my finger. It sounds so tight. This was my late mother's diamond ring. It's got 3 little 1/4 carat diamonds in it and some little poppy stones. And when my mother died, my sister had a jeweler who cut the shank off, melted it down, added more platinum to it, and gave the ring a sex change, turned it into a man's ring. A lot of people don't know you can do that. You can take women's rings, make them men's rings, women's, so forth. So anyway, I wear my beloved mother's ring. I've worn it for like more than 20 years. I so wanted to take it off and say, "Miss Taylor, Elizabeth," she hated to be called Liz. I was warned about that. Do not call her Liz. Elizabeth. Or no, actually, I'm told she wanted to be called Dame Taylor. She had been made a dame by Queen Elizabeth. She actually wanted to be called Dame Taylor. He said she was very formal in respects like that. He had to actually coach me about very proper table manners and things like, be sure you put your napkin on your left knee, that type of thing. Do not talk while you're eating. I was coached. He said, do not ask her about her personal life. I knew that, but this is something that surprised me. He said, do not ask her about her movies. So I was like, bummer. I wanted to ask her about Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and Cleopatra and Place in the Sun and even Come Home Lassie, things like that. But I was going to be so polite and said, "Miss Taylor, Dame Taylor, Elizabeth, would you take my mother's ring?" Even though just holding it, so I can always say my late mother's ring made it all the way to Elizabeth Taylor's finger. And I asked him about that, her assistant. He said, I think she might find that cute. She might go for that. So I missed my opportunity to do that. So anyway, that's my story. And I have been on now 1 hour and 36 minutes. So I'm going to sign off unless somebody else has another comment here. I love you guys. Thank you for joining me. It means a lot to me to have you. And even the recorded version of this, I get a lot of new people coming aboard saying it. So for you people, I say, please like and subscribe my channel, Chuck's Captivating Chronicles, and be here on Mondays, 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. I'm pretty good about not missing this. I don't think I have missed it, other than maybe a few pre-recorded shows, holidays and stuff. So please do that. And just know it means a lot to me to have you join me. So I will see you next Monday. I'm going to say goodbye to all of you right now, and already I know I have topics for next week. So I'll see you then. Goodbye.